Hello, my name is David, and I am an English teacher. I know how challenging it can be to learn a new language, and I completely understand what you're going through. You see, even though I teach English, I've had my fair share of struggles with learning new languages too. But here's the good news. I have a superpower. That's right, a superpower that can help you learn English in a way that feels natural, fun, and easy. Today, we're going to explore how you can improve your English skills through real-life situations. We'll learn simple yet powerful phrases that will help you feel more confident when speaking English. And guess what? You don't have to be perfect. Every small step counts, and each time you practice, you're making progress. I want to invite you to join me on this journey. As we go through this story together, I'll teach you practical phrases that you can use every day. But there's a little secret to learning effectively. Repetition. Yes, by repeating phrases out loud, you'll improve your pronunciation and start to feel more comfortable with the language. Before we begin, make sure to turn on the subtitles and repeat after me. It might feel a bit awkward at first, but trust me, it works. The more you speak, the easier it will get. Are you ready? Great. Let's dive into today's story and see how we can make learning English a fun and rewarding experience. It was a bright, sunny morning in the park, the kind of day that makes you feel like anything is possible. Birds were singing in the trees, and the sound of children laughing could be heard in the distance. It was the perfect day to teach English. I had just set up my little makeshift classroom under a large oak tree, with a whiteboard and some chairs for my students. The students were a group of adults, all with different backgrounds, and each one had their own unique relationship with English. Some were beginners, some had been learning for a while, but all of them had one thing in common. They were nervous about speaking. I could tell right away that most of them were afraid of making mistakes. I've seen it before. A lot of people hold back from speaking because they don't want to say something wrong. But here's the thing. Making mistakes is normal. It's part of the learning process. In fact, it's how we improve. And as their teacher, it was my job to show them that mistakes were not something to be afraid of. So, I gathered them around and began talking to them about my own journey with language learning. You know, I said with a smile, when I first started learning Spanish, I was terrified to speak. I worried that people would laugh at me if I made a mistake. But over time, I realized that the only way to get better was to practice, even if I didn't get everything right. I could see their eyes brighten a little. Maybe they were starting to feel a bit more at ease. English is no different, I continued. If you want to get better at it, you need to practice. And guess what? I'm here to help you every step of the way. That's when I decided to introduce my superpower, the one that helped me overcome my fear of speaking in another language. The power of simple, practical phrases. These are phrases that anyone can learn, and they can be used in everyday situations. The best part? They don't require perfect grammar or complicated vocabulary. They are phrases that help you start talking right now. I looked at the group, sensing that they were ready to take that first step. Today, I said, we're going to learn one of the most important phrases in English. Can you help me? The group looked at me with curiosity. I smiled and explained, this is a phrase you'll use all the time, whether you're asking for directions, getting help at a store, or even asking someone to explain something to you. Let's say it together, I added. Repeat after me. Can you help me? I paused, giving them time to say it out loud. Some were a little shy, but I could tell that they were already starting to feel a bit more comfortable. With the phrase, "Can you help me?" hanging in the air, I decided it was time to put it into action. We were going to practice using it in a real-life situation, one that would be both fun and practical. I stood up and said, "Imagine we're in a store and you can't find something. What would you say to the store employee?" One student, Maria, raised her hand. She was a little shy, but I could tell she was eager to participate. Um, can I help you?" she said hesitantly. "Good try, Maria," I said with encouragement. "But remember, when you need help, you want to ask, 'Can you help me?' Not, 'Can I help you?' The reason is simple. You're asking someone else for help, not offering help yourself." The students nodded, absorbing this new information. I repeated the sentence slowly, saying, "Can you help me?" emphasizing each word. "Now, everyone, let's try it together," I instructed. "Ready? 1, 2, 3. Can you help me?" Everyone repeated the phrase. Some voices were more confident than others, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that they were practicing and getting comfortable speaking out loud. I smiled at them and continued. This phrase can be used in so many situations. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're at a coffee shop and you're looking for a seat. You might ask, "Can you help me find a table?" Or, if you need to find your friend in a crowd, you can say, "Can you help me find Sarah?" As I explained, I could see the students starting to visualize these situations. They were imagining themselves in these scenarios, and the power of the phrase was starting to sink in. It wasn't just a random collection of words. It was something useful, something they could use immediately. Now, I turned my attention to Maria, who had been a little nervous earlier. "Maria, let's practice together," I said gently. "Imagine you're in a store and you can't find the milk. What would you say?" Maria hesitated for a moment, then nervously said, "Can you help me find the milk?" "Perfect," I exclaimed. "That's exactly right. You can use the phrase, 'Can you help me?' for anything you need assistance with." Let's practice with a few more examples. I wrote some of these scenarios on the board to help everyone visualize the phrases, "Can you help me with my homework?" "Can you help me open this door?" "Can you help me understand this sentence?" "Let's try them together," I said. "I'll say one, and you repeat after me." We went through the list, taking our time to say each sentence clearly. I encouraged the students to speak slowly and carefully, focusing on the correct pronunciation. It was important to me that they didn't rush the process. "Now, I want to try something a little different," I said, after a few rounds of practice. "Instead of just repeating after me, I want you to think of your own examples. Imagine you're in a new situation and you need help. What would you say?" I gave them a moment to think. Some students looked a bit unsure, but I reassured them, saying, "Don't worry if it's not perfect. Just try." A few moments later, Carlos raised his hand. "Can you help me with directions?" he asked confidently. "Great job, Carlos," I responded. "That's a very useful phrase when you're traveling or in a new city. Let's say it together. Can you help me with directions?" The group repeated after me. Then another student, Helen, spoke up. "Can you help me carry this box?" she said with a smile. "Perfect," I exclaimed. "See? The more you practice, the easier it gets. You're all doing amazing." I could see that everyone was starting to relax. They were no longer afraid of making mistakes. Instead, they were embracing the process and becoming more confident with each repetition. I walked around the group, giving everyone a chance to practice individually. I corrected a few minor pronunciation errors here and there, but for the most part, everyone was doing great. After a while, I called everyone's attention. "Okay, great job, everyone, but I want to leave you with one last challenge before we move on. Let's do a role play." I set the scene. I'm a store employee, and you need help finding something. You have to ask me for help using the phrase, "Can you help me?" I pointed to Maria first. "Maria, you go first." Maria stood up nervously, but took a deep breath. "Can you help me find the shoes?" she asked, still unsure of herself. "Excellent," I said with a big smile. "You did it. Now, who's next?" One by one, the students practiced, and by the end, everyone was saying the phrase with more confidence. I could see the change in their attitudes. They were no longer scared to speak. They were starting to own the language. As the role-playing exercise came to an end, I took a step back and looked at the group. Everyone had done so well, and I was proud of their progress. Now, it was time to break down the key lesson from today's practice and give everyone a little more insight into how they can use these phrases in different situations. "All right, everyone," I began, turning back to the whiteboard. "Let's take a closer look at what we learned today." The phrase, "Can you help me?" is simple, but very powerful. It's a request for assistance, and it's incredibly useful in daily life. I wrote the phrase on the board. "Can you help me?" First, I said, we use this question when we want to ask someone to help us with something. But what makes this phrase special is that it can be used in so many situations. Let me give you a few examples. I wrote 3 scenarios on the board. Can you help me find my keys? Can you help me understand this word? Can you help me with my English homework? Notice how, in each case, we're asking for help with different things. It could be something physical, like finding your keys, or something mental, like understanding a word. The phrase is flexible and can fit into almost any situation where you need assistance. Now, let's break it down a bit more. The phrase "can you" is a polite way to ask someone to do something. We're not telling the person to help us. We're politely asking if they are able to help us. It's a question, but it's also a request. For example, "Can you help me with directions?" It is asking if the person knows the directions and if they are willing to help you. I wrote this example on the board. "Can you help me with directions?" I turned back to the class. Notice that we use the word "help" in the middle of the sentence. It's the main action in our request. So when you're asking for help with something, make sure to include the word "help." Without it, the sentence wouldn't make sense. For example, "Can you with directions?" doesn't work because we're missing the verb help. I paused for a moment to let this sink in. Now, let's talk about variations. There are other ways to ask for help that you can use in different situations. I wrote the following examples on the board. Could you help me? Would you help me? Can I help you? Each of these is a polite way to ask for assistance, but there's a difference in formality. Can you help me is the most common and casual. Could you help me is slightly more polite, and would you help me sounds even more formal. You can use any of these, depending on who you're speaking to and the situation. Let's go over them together. Repeat after me. Could you help me? The group repeated the sentence. Great! Now, try, would you help me? I gave everyone a moment to repeat the phrase. Good job! And now, let's go back to, can I help you? This is a way to offer help instead of asking for it. It's important to remember that you can offer help as well as ask for it. For example, in a store, you might hear someone say, "Can I help you?" when they want to assist a customer. I turned to the class and asked, "Can anyone think of a situation where you could offer help to someone?" Carlos raised his hand. Maybe if someone drops their books, I can say, "Can I help you pick them up?" Exactly, Carlos, I said. That's a perfect example. You can use "Can I help you?" when you want to offer assistance. It's a polite way to show that you're willing to help. I smiled and looked around at everyone. So, let's recap what we've learned so far. We've practiced asking for help using the phrase, "Can you help me?" in different situations. We've also learned a few variations like, "Could you help me?" and "Would you help me?" to make your request sound more polite. And don't forget, you can offer help too with, "Can I help you?" Keep in mind that these phrases are just the beginning. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become in using them. And the best part is, you'll start to hear these phrases everywhere. In conversations, in stores, at work, and even on TV shows. They're simple, but essential. And they'll make you sound more natural when you speak English. Now that we've reviewed everything, it's time to put our learning into practice. Remember, the best way to truly master a new phrase is by using it in different contexts and making it a part of your daily conversations. So, let's do some interactive exercises to solidify what we've just learned. I looked around at the class and said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a few scenarios, and I want you to use the phrase, 'Can you help me?' or its variations to ask for help. Don't worry about being perfect. Just focus on speaking confidently." I paused for a moment to let everyone think about what we'd covered. Here's the first scenario. You're at a train station and you're lost. You need help finding the right platform. What would you say? A few students hesitated at first, but then Maria spoke up. "Can you help me find the platform?" "Perfect, Maria," I said with enthusiasm. "That's exactly how you would ask. Well done!" I gave the class a thumbs up. Now, let's try another one. This time, imagine you're at a restaurant. You want to ask the waiter for help with the menu because you don't understand some of the items. What would you say? Carlos raised his hand this time. "Can you help me with the menu?" Excellent! That's exactly right. You're using the phrase in a real situation where you need help understanding something. Now, let's try a little variation. I want you to use, "Could you help me?" to make your request a little more polite. The class looked at me, eager to participate. I continued, "All right, let's make this a little more fun. I'm going to give you a challenge. I want you to think of 3 different situations where you might need help. It could be at work, at home, or in the street. And then, I want you to ask for help using the phrase, 'Can you help me?' or one of its variations." The students began thinking, and I could see them starting to feel more comfortable with the exercise. I gave them some time to come up with their examples. After a few moments, I called on Helen. "I can say, 'Can you help me fix this chair?' if the chair is broken," she said. "Perfect, Helen," I said with excitement. "That's a great example. Now, who's next?" One by one, the students shared their own scenarios, and I wrote down their sentences on the board. Here's what they came up with. "Can you help me find my phone? Can you help me carry this box? Can you help me understand this email?" "Wonderful work, everyone," I said as I looked over their sentences. "You're really getting the hang of it. Now, let's do something a little different. I want you to try using these sentences in conversation with each other, pair up with someone next to you, and practice asking for help in different situations. Remember, take your time and don't be afraid to make mistakes." I walked around the classroom, listening to their conversations. I could hear everyone practicing, asking questions, and offering help to each other. Some students needed a little guidance with pronunciation or grammar, but overall, I was impressed by how much progress they had made in such a short time. After a few minutes, I gathered the group's attention again. "All right, let's take a short break from the role play. I want you to think about how you can use what you've learned in real life. Maybe you're going to a new place, or meeting someone new. How can you use the phrase, 'Can you help me?' in those situations?" Carlos raised his hand and said, "I could use it when I need help with a new project at work. I could say, 'Can you help me with this project?'" "Exactly, Carlos," I said, smiling. "That's a great example. It shows that you can use this phrase in many situations, both in personal and professional settings." I could see that the students were starting to feel more confident. They were no longer shy about using the language. They had moved from hesitation to active participation. To wrap up the activity, I asked everyone to think of one situation in their daily life where they could use "Can you help me?" "Sikasito," or one of its variations in the coming week. Take a moment to think about it, and when you're ready, I want you to share it with the class. One by one, the students shared their examples. I'll ask my friend, "Can you help me with my homework?" I'll ask my mom, "Can you help me clean the house?" I'll ask a stranger, "Can you help me with directions?" I could feel the excitement in the air. It was clear that everyone was starting to see how these phrases could be used in real life. As we wrapped up the class, I looked around the room at the students who were still buzzing with energy from our interactive practice. I could see the sense of accomplishment in their faces. They were no longer worried about making mistakes. They were excited to speak English and use what they had learned. "All right, everyone," I began. "You did an incredible job today. I'm so proud of the progress you've made. We've learned how to ask for help using the phrase, 'Can you help me?' and its variations like, 'Could you help me?' and 'Would you help me?' We've seen how these phrases can be used in all kinds of situations, from asking for directions to offering help to a friend." I paused for a moment, allowing the students to absorb what we had accomplished. But the most important thing I want you to remember is this: learning English isn't about being perfect. It's about communicating. It's about connecting with others. And today, you've taken a huge step toward that. I smiled warmly and continued, "Every time you practice, you get a little bit better. Every time you use English, you're building confidence. And that's what matters most. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And don't be afraid to offer help. Both of these things are part of learning and growing, and they're part of being a good communicator." I looked directly at Maria, who had been a little shy earlier in the class, but had grown more confident as the lesson went on. "Maria, you've done amazing today. You were hesitant at first, but you asked for help when you needed it, and you're already speaking more confidently." Maria smiled shyly, but I could tell she was proud of herself. "Thank you," she said softly. "You're welcome," I said with a nod. "And remember, if you can help yourself and others by using the phrases we learned today, you can do so much more. You can tackle new challenges, make new friends, and succeed in ways you didn't think were possible." I turned back to the class. "Now, I want to leave you with this challenge. Go out into the world and find at least one situation where you can use 'Can you help me?' or one of its variations. Maybe it's asking for directions, asking a colleague for help, or offering help to someone else. Use what you've learned and practice." I paused for a second, letting the students take it all in. If you keep practicing, you will improve. And the best part? You're learning every step of the way, and you're not alone. We're all in this together, and I'm here to help you every step of the way. I could see the students nodding, energized by the encouragement. They were ready to put what they had learned into action. Before we finish, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more lessons, and leave a comment about how you're planning to use today's lesson in your daily life. I can't wait to hear how you're all progressing. I smiled as the class gathered their things, chatting excitedly about the day's lesson. They had come in a bit uncertain, but they were leaving with confidence. And that was exactly what I wanted for them. Keep practicing, keep learning, and remember, every small step is progress. You're doing amazing. See you next time.